We find ourselves in an environment that consistently churns out falsities and deceptions. And this is why after awakening, the living soul finds his or herself in a state of misalignment with the world at large. We can become disappointed and disenchanted with life itself once realizing that all is not what we thought it was. It doesn't take much to see that every niche of society and culture is riddled with corruption and manipulation. And this all is becoming exponentially apparent as the hands of time move forward, as the tides of change ebb and flow. These realizations can morph us into beings who feel a heavy sense of defeat. The world, we can think, is too intimidating and difficult to traverse. I am but a small blip in this giant web of confusion. We can think such things. We may feel sorry for ourselves, become bitter, give in to pleasure-seeking and distraction to dull the moment away. We may resent the forces of this world, directing emotional angst to the supposed bad guys or evil that reigns. We may wish we never even woke up, as now there is no turning back. It's crucial for the living soul to see that this lifetime is not one meaningless lifetime amongst many others throughout the ages, but as a special kind of process, a journey specifically tailored for the living soul to live out. So a more centered awareness and consciousness, so a more authentic awareness and consciousness can be known and actualized. This world is not designed to be anything but a wonderland of divine realization, and I have many videos describing all of this in greater detail. The battles within ourselves are no different than the battles we observe outside of us. Now, I get it. You can listen to these statements and think, yeah, that sounds good, but that's fantasy talk. Pure make-believe. But the real fantasy actually resides in the various worldviews, dogmas, and societal and religious norms that pervade this matrix. Humans love to attach themselves to beliefs, attitudes, and perspectives that advocate a hive mind mentality, obsessed with appeasing something outside of oneself. In religion, this could be God or a series of moral codes. In society, this could be a social cause or a series of expected rules of conduct. Instead of following their inner voices, most humans follow the voices outside of themselves, as if those voices replace the true inner voice. Humans like to be a part of clans where sovereignty is traded in for dependence on a book, a leader, a figure, an ideal that claims itself to be virtuous, etc., etc. For a realm that supposedly contains billions of people, billions of individuals, we certainly observe a whole lot of mindless repetition. The past few years, if they've taught us anything, should have revealed that there is a distinction between those entangled in the status quo and those who seek to get past the lies of this world. You see how almost overnight much of the world slapped on a mask, lined up for the new government-backed pharmaceutical poisons? The world has become a caricature of itself. Sure, we can blame indoctrination all we want, we can point at this or that, but sooner or later we must confront that everything operating here operates first and foremost from an intangible space. To say in another way, the material realm's ongoings reflect the spiritual actuality of it all. And the spiritual actuality is this: we, the living souls, are in a process of unveiling. This is what the Greek word for apocalypse means. The madness prevailing throughout this experience shall increase as we, the living souls, wake up to the truth of our own consciousness and spirit. Many of the personal realizations we collectively confront prove to be difficult. What's hidden must come to the surface, and what leads to realities of despair must be burned away. Most of the beings here, indeed, are not true sparks of divinity. They are nothing but hive-minded creatures who play out a series of similar algorithms, we could say, that conduct their behavior, attitudes, speech, desires, and so on. Who sustains the ever-unfolding dysfunction and degeneracy here? Not the living. These forces out there in the world that seem to destroy all that is true and good and authentic are akin to the phantoms in our dreams. They are generated by our own process of purging and play out on the matrix grid of reality to eventually be dissolved, so the universal mind is cleansed and refined. Please refer to previous videos on this topic. This is how a divine awakening can occur alongside a world that tears itself apart. This world will try to give us 1,000,001 reasons to doubt ourselves. Religions tell us that unless we accept this God or Savior or belief or mantra or prayer or practice, that we will suffer consequences. Society tells us that danger awaits if we don't become consumed with this news story or that cultural development, if we don't act in this or that way. Many spiritual groups inform their drone audience to sink into a bland, selfless, egoless nothingness that supposedly represents an enlightened state. And amidst all of these opinions, which try to tell you what to do and what to think and how to process yourself, I ask, where is the childlike innocence? Where is the dance? Where is the discovery? Where is the silliness and where is the poetry?
Queen Elizabeth is dead. 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 Dead.
Where is the authentic expression that cares not if it's out of alignment with accepted norms? I suppose I can't speak for you, but my form of spirituality has nothing to do with praising a deity, or losing the ego, or claiming to be about goodness and love and light. I am simply me, an expression of the infinite inexpressible, a tangible version of something intangible. I am not bound to the opinions and laws that humans have thoughtlessly spread with such confidence. We are not bound to the laws that humans claim immovably exist. The living soul's journey is one that seeks consciousness harmonization. We seek harmony within ourselves. We seek to be able to be at one with our experiences and not out of sync. But to do this, to accomplish this harmonization, the living soul must be confronted. The various dramas that play out personally and societally are produced not by happenstance, but by fate, by a force that resides inside, which must paint haunting murals on the outside world to wake us up from our slumber. How did we each begin this journey, huh? It was through intense, oftentimes unwanted personal confrontation, usually inspired by tearing down some illusion that we thought was absolute in this world. Reality confronts the living soul, informing him or her of the veils that cover up the true self, the authentic inner child. Truth be told, I despise the common iterations of enlightenment and of awakening that suggest I have arrived at the best version of myself, because for the living soul, as long as we remain in material form, the name of the game is see what needs to be seen in order to refine and evolve. We say the world currently exists in the information age. There certainly is plenty of content that we can use to distract ourselves from our spiritual state, which, by the way, is reflected in every aspect of our lives. Our spiritual state is reflected in our psychology, our physiology, our emotional and mental landscape, the actions we perform. It's all related. Because of the grandiose level of content out there, it's more crucial than ever to be cognizant of how we use our attention. We say that we pay attention. Whenever we give our attention to anything, we make a transaction. We currently see the currency that's been paid from the attention that we give. I bring this up because our attention basically builds our consciousness, what it is we experience. I bring this up because we can get lost in the sauce of various narratives and ideas, and before we know it, our mental, physical, and ultimately our spiritual health can be gravely affected. Let me give an example of how this reality can tempt us to get lost in the sauce. Right now, the world waves its SOS flag when it comes to many problems, too many to count. We all have the ability to go online or open up a newspaper, if people even still read, and take into our consciousness a whole lot of fear and projected doom. We may read about this shooting, that social concern, this pandemic, which is obviously fake, that governmental corruption, blah, 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 blah. The concern for our world seems so logical, right? You hear about a problem, or many problems, and now your mind feels naturally obliged to investigate, to ruminate, to stress out, to feel small. What's happening in these moments where we pay attention to some problem out there and then we get affected is we're being tricked by the Matrix test. And the test is this: will we give in to a disempowered state because the world around us moans and wails? Or shall we remember who we are within this temporary maze and laugh at the never-ending series of shit shows. If this world is temporary in our experience, and it is, we're not staying here forever, then we may as well use our gift of attention to set free the immortal essence within, that cutie patootie we call the soul. That sounds way better to me. There's much within the fabric of our being and of our lives and of our, well, behaviors, patterns of being, etc., that require attention so we can snap out of it and open our eyes. In general, the idea of empowerment seems to have devolved into a shallow confidence. This shallow confidence isn't what I mean when I advocate empowerment. One is not empowered simply because they say they are so. A truly empowered soul does not merely philosophize, but actualizes their empowerment by casting away dysfunctional behaviors, patterns, and beliefs that lead to a sense of disconnection from what is true, nurturing, and whole. The Truman Show remains a wonderful allegory regarding our situation, and I have a decoding video of that movie if you're interested. Truman is akin to a living soul in a sea of non-player characters of artificial consciousness. Truman lives his life, not realizing he exists in a made-up world, surrounded by actors. This includes his family and friends. Truman starts to observe inconsistencies in the narrative that his reality gives him. And the more he unveils this artificial world, the more he discovers his own power. His surroundings start changing, malfunctioning, we could say, as he wakes up. The actors start taking measures to prevent his awakening. His wife and friend try to gaslight Truman, telling him how crazy and strange he sounds for questioning reality. When Truman tries to book a flight to Fiji, the office shows a photo of a plane getting hit by lightning. When Truman tries to escape by car, there's a barrier of fire, and after he goes through, there's some kind of nuclear problem, and he's tackled by men in suits. I bring all of this up because as we've awakened, the world has gotten crazier. It's as if the world has tried to redirect our attention to something else rather than our own divine processes. It's because we are in a construct, we are in a kind of test, and the test is, shall we value what's outside of us more than inside? It is crucial not to let this world bury us in disempowerment and doubt, as we have a job to do. That job is to resurrect ourselves amidst a world wishing to instill fear through a so-called healthy caution. Of course, I know I'm speaking an opinion that's not commonly held. What is commonly held is this: in order to be a decent person, we must be attached to the woes of the world. I'm informing you this is utter nonsense. Just like the lackluster responses Truman gets for telling his family and his loved ones how he's feeling, we too often find that those around us don't understand what we see so clearly. We are absolutely going through this portion of the game right now. Just like Truman's reality starts to malfunction, creating an artificial sense of danger as he opens his eyes, our reality, too, has increased the level of fear. When we have fooled ourselves into playing the common games played all around us, we become entangled with the earthly and lose touch with the authenticity of our being. But like Truman, once we completely understand that this is a construct and that reality truly does wrap around our own spiritual states, we can venture into the unknown and sail away towards freedom. Truman stopped giving the world power over him, and instead he gained the strength, courage, and spontaneity to let his authentic self fly free. We are here to accomplish the same. However, unlike Truman, our freedom does not rely on a physical boat, but on the revelations which penetrate and dissolve all illusion and delusion. I have made the following comparison before. All dreams we have at night, as many psychologists know, manifest directly from the sub and unconscious. The parts of ourselves that we are unwilling or unable to process in waking life are processed during dream time. When we process something uncomfortable, we have nightmares. Similarly, this dream we're in, and life is but a dream, isn't it, currently displays many ghouls and phantoms, all of which don't exist independently, but exist as an unloading from our greater spiritual selves. If this doesn't make sense, then I don't mind. I know only poets will understand. I'm not trying to indoctrinate you into anything. I wish not to tell you what to do, how to live, or who to be. Rather, it is up to each of us to find our own way back to the heart, back to the center. Thank you for watching. Keep up the great work.
Thank you for joining me. The world is weird. Yeah, the world is a strange place. And it's been getting stranger and stranger. Good. The divine knows what it's doing. As the world seems to tear itself apart, as culture, politics, the economy, as the social landscape of society falls apart, as it all twists itself into parades of what look like circus performers. As this all happens, we, the living souls, are actually given many opportunities to disconnect from the noise out here and connect with the wisdom inside. What has been hiding in the unconsciousness of ourselves can no longer remain there. It must come to consciousness. And one of the main catalysts for this shift from unconsciousness to consciousness is the societal upheaval. When we see the unconsciousness thriving around us, when we see ignorance and disorientation increasing in this world, we are inspired
to face the unconsciousness in ourselves. In this process of divine reclamation, the world operates as a giant demonstration to example what creation comes up with when its participants are steeped in limited awareness. We are shown the opposite conduct required to unlock divine intelligence. So we can make this mess of an age act as a message for us to take a look at ourselves. The mirror of reality displays to us what is within, so we may finally see it and then clear ourselves of the energies or tendencies that lead to, well, bruises of the soul. The more strange and twisted this place gets, the more we're able to recognize the faulty or incomplete pieces of ourselves that must be transmuted. So yes, it may seem scary and intimidating, but only if we are giving this world and its strangeness more authority over us than our own hearts. So I don't say things are bad, I say things are perfect. I trust in the direction of this experience, and thus in the revelations which can be derived from the suffering. This is like a hospital, or we at least can treat this experience as a spiritual hospital visit. Obviously, all of us have felt as if we're not in the quality of consciousness which is optimum. That inner voice tells us to refine ourselves. It's all about the quality of our consciousness, the state of being we inhabit is crucial because we don't live in the world. We first and foremost live in our consciousness. So it is the quality of that consciousness which shall always determine how we perceive everything around us, how we perceive what's happening macrocosmically and microcosmically. This is why, as within, so without. But what separates us from the beautiful space of heart connection and playfulness and joy and peace, what separates us from that state of consciousness is the attachment to behaviors and ways of being that lead to a feeling of more incompleteness, more toxicity, less clarity. We must not see this divine great work as something which purely exists in the mental sphere. It might seem like I simply philosophize, but I philosophize to actualize. What prevents us from connecting with that heart space? Behaviors, actions, attitudes, how we interact with our bodies, how we interact with food, how we interact with our mental landscape, how we interact with others. Every single energetic input is a message to the universe, which is the you-niverse. So every input results in a certain state of consciousness, a certain quality. And it is up to us to consistently take into account if the quality we're in tastes like the most authentic version of ourselves or not. Or maybe we should say, we need to verify if what we're doing in our lives is creating a sense of evolution and soul triumph,
rather than a feeling of confusion or spiritual blindness. When we walk this path, it may seem as if we're walking a purely mystical one. But really, in order to be granted mystical or spiritual or transcendent experiences or intuitions, it doesn't require a push towards the mystical. It takes focusing on the practical. We can theorize all we want, we can come up with many ideas, we can wonder about this or that topic in relation to the soul and all of its machinations, but you know what? Unless we practically are taking the daily steps to arrive at a more liberated state, then we'll just be psyching ourselves out. Come on, let us not theorize, let us actualize. This means we can attach to all of the beliefs we want, we can attach to all of the dogmas, we can speak all of the correct words that are deemed spiritual, but if we're not consistently refining the quality of being, then we ain't doing much but playing foolish games. We may try to suffocate our inner voice we may try to exchange that voice for something out here. Maybe that's fear. But eventually, I think all living souls come to the realization that there's no one else driving this experience but I alone. And that does not mean that I alone have authority over every single thing I ever come into contact with. Rather, it is a knowingness that the creation and creator are intertwined, that what we become conscious of that previously was hidden manifests to all of creation a beauty and a potency which leads to freedom, which leads to liberation. It's all about the quality of our consciousness. So let us choose consciousness over concern. Let us consistently choose to refine ourselves. If something feels a bit off, I know we may feel tempted to use the container of the outer world to cast our shadows into. You know, we can point the finger, oh, look at that bad guy, look at that agenda. But why don't we up the maturity level a bit, all whilst upping the level of that inner child, which wants us to dance and shake and not freak out about things which aren't even in the quality of consciousness that we wish to inhabit ourselves. So you know what? If this world has a bozo-like quality to it, if we are truly in a circus, then let it be a circus and be a spectator. Take care. Keep up the great work. Take a deep breath with me. Deep breaths are important. So here we are, awake within a dream, lucid within a dream. Once we have realized that mortal consciousness isn't the bee's knees, once we realize that there is much more to this than meets the eye, once we realize that the offerings of this world pale in comparison to the offerings our own heart can instill our experience with, then we can no longer be steeped in ignorance. We can no longer be steeped in this attitude that only sees the mundane, only sees the day-to-day. We are in time, and time is a very trippy thing, because it pushes us forward and forces all within its grasp to change. Now, what quality shall that change be? That's the question. And that is the terror of being in time, of being incarnated.
We are born and pass through time in a process of growth and decay, only to step out of it all through death's doorway, at which point we confront the spiritual realm and our relationship to it in its purity, without the veil of matter. The great work prepares us to confront the doorway of death with ease and courage. In order to do so, we must be willing to treat this lifetime as an initiation.
We may wish to fall back into deep slumber and forget once again that this is a very meaningful experience, that it is designed for the evolution of the soul. We can choose to forget this or act stupid. But all that will do is make us more merged with mortal consciousness. In reality, we should be exchanging the known and the comfortable and the routine for the unknown. We need to take a journey into the void of ourselves so that the journey through time does not lead to a transformation that we might find ugly or monstrous, or not up to par with that true self that we know to be achievable. We achieve the true self by uncovering the true self. The true self is the inner child that we have chosen to lock away through agreeing to many mortal tendencies here. What are mortal tendencies? Well, first of all, mortal consciousness does not illuminate the intangible or the intrinsic magic of it all.
When we connect with and experience the universal sacredness that resides inside, the unifying energy of all, we touch the wisdom that sustains all of creation. Then, in comparison, the world of mortals, though we are still physically a part of it, no longer feels compatible. The world of inner experience becomes more valuable and vast than the world outside of us. Let us choose to inhabit a life that demonstrates divine consciousness. This is the truth we feel from the core of our being. These days, there's a lot of emphasis on my truth or your truth, the idea that truth is subjective. Indeed, it is, but there are universal truths that we cannot hide from, such as we all suffer, and we suffer more when we forget this and try to avoid the suffering. All illusion we attach to makes us ill. All desires of the flesh do not and cannot fulfill. And this is a realm designed to lead a soul into liberation. These are all truths that are deep down known. But the veil of matter allows us to become confused, to ignore the voices from within that call for our freedom. It is this freedom which calls us to live a life focused on intimate divine realization. Mortal consciousness does not care about true freedom. It confuses slavery with freedom. Mortal consciousness is consumed with conflict, the dualities of right and wrong, domination, master-slave relationships, creating and sustaining drama and trauma, propelling and spreading belief systems, propelling and spreading fear, and being on one side of the argument or another. This is what mortal consciousness does. Mortal consciousness is focused on bodily and mental stimulation, attempting to derive pleasure from lustful pursuits, the distractions of entertainment and media, and an overall beast-like approach towards the material. This does not produce well-being. This produces a lot of confusion and a lot more suffering than would otherwise be experienced. Just because the world at large acts this way does not mean we have to fall into this immature, ignorant way of being. We can connect with divine consciousness. We have this phrase, full of yourself. When we say someone is full of themselves, it's usually a narcissistic accusation. But truly, to be full of yourself means to be so immersed in self-realization, so sustained by that realization, that there is such a reduced desire to fill one's cup with thrills and pleasures from the world of mortals. This mortal consciousness is not a demonic consciousness. It's simply what creation displays when many of its pieces are lost in the sauce of a false reality. This is simply what happens when we forget. We are, manifested a world that is so upside down. Divine consciousness, however, not being in forgetfulness, is full of itself. It is full of itself. It knows it is everything and nothing all at once. The true self knows the answers to the big questions of life, and knows that these big questions of life reside not in textbooks or in deep analysis, but in the beingness and presence that hides behind all illusion and delusion. The many algorithms here which wish to bind themselves to us. The algorithm of grief, the algorithm of fear, the algorithm of anxiety. How do we get into these states? We get into these states through ignoring the intuition and conscience. When we ignore these crucial voices, it is the same thing as ignoring the voice of God. The voice of the divine speaks
to us and through us using the territory of our mental and emotional sphere. Therefore, throughout this journey in time, if we want to make sure that we are not screwing our souls, if we want to make sure that the transformation is going to be a beautiful, wonderful one, then maybe, just maybe, we should learn how to take into account cause and effect. We can perform many actions within time, we can think many thoughts, we can say many things, we can agree to many contracts. And every time we perform anything, we are creating a cause. And knowing that time is simply a canvas to display the effects of our causes, knowing this can lead us to a kind of mindfulness in which we aren't being reckless and careless with our conduct. Why should we care? One may ask. I mean, this is just a crazy maze. It's bullshit, isn't it? I mean, it's so confusing. Why should we treat it with any kind of respect? Well, I feel you, oh devil's advocate voice. I feel you. If this is all a matrix, if this is a construct, and if the mortal world is here to show us how not to be, then what's the point of even being here? And I would say it's only as intimidating as our own inability or unwillingness to face ourselves. There are many uncomfortable things that need to be faced in order to elevate ourselves into a greater expanded consciousness. Everything in this world comes and goes. Even these bodies, they grow and they decay. Growth and decay is how this matrix operates. Therefore, there's no use in attaching to anything here. Everything will come and go. People, places, and cultures. You, your thoughts, your problems, etc., etc. But there is one thing that remains, and that is this immortal, infinite, adorable spark that we might call the soul. That is the driver, the conductor of this entire experience, conducting it simply to lead us back into itself. It's a game that's beyond our ability to analyze it in a reasonable way. So knowing there is one thing that never dies in a world in which everything dies, knowing this, we can carry out this experience in a very successful manner. How can we possibly allow ourselves to attach to anything or to anyone, knowing that it will all die? When we cling to our desires, to our expectations, to our projections of how the future should or should not be, inevitably, it blows up in our face. Eventually. That always happens, right? the harder we wish to push certain realities into actuality, the further from those realities we are. Isn't that interesting? Now, we can play many games here. I'm not saying meditate in a corner all day. All I am suggesting is that because our consciousness is immortal, and because almost everything else we deal with here is very mortal, or at least very subject to decay, there's no reason to give anything authority over us other than our own intuition, our own conscience, our own inner voice. At the end of the day, no matter what we've accomplished, no matter how much laughter we've had, no matter what we've done in this world, unless we sit well with our own minds and hearts at the end of the day, there shall be no peace and no true accomplishment. This world may tempt us to go after this or that, pursue glory, pursue rank or authority, pursue some kind of image. I don't know. Whatever it is, this world may tempt us to value that which does not make us feel valued at the end of the day. We may run and hide, we may wish to distract ourselves, but again, at the end of the day, we have one being, one entity, one force to face, and that force is not God. It's not this higher being. That higher being is actually the inner being, which definitely calls to us in disappointment when we don't live up to its standards. Knowing all of this, we can use this construct we call time in order to further and further connect with what is infinite, what is immortal, what is eternal, and what is full of true joy. Nothing in this world gives true joy. Nope. And that may feel disappointing to some of us, but that's just the reality. We're just passing through here. We're going through a process of relieving ourselves in many ways. We have to relieve the universal mind of many ugly or conflict-ridden traits. But after we've been there and done that, well, then it's time to embark on a quest that has nothing to do with anyone else but you. Is this narcissistic? No. No. We may wish to lord over others. That's what people are talking about when they're talking about narcissism. A true narcissist, in the psychological sense of the word, wishes to have victims and wishes to reign over others. When I say connect with yourself, when I say know that the all, the one, and the oneness of the all is intertwined with your own heart. When I say that in the most harmless sense. Know that all of creation has been designed for your upliftment, and therefore for the upliftment of all of creation. This is knowing the I am. This is knowing as within, so without. And living out the principle of as within, so without means all that can be experienced without first originates within. As we walk through this world, knowing each moment to be supremely designed for our evolution, we step further and further into a transcendent gnosis. We intimately encounter the divine in ways that religion has not even began to tell us about. Thank you for joining us. Keep up the great work.
So confused when I look at this space that surrounds me and asks me to pay. Too frequent vision, too many creeps. I'm laying out in the heat, burning up all defeats. Don't matter if you get torn apart. You know the sound of soul and of heart. But sometimes you gotta play so dumb to get things done, to get things done. Row your boat on the waters of mind. Expand all you know, release, refine. You know how it goes from without to inside. Shatter all the chatter, got it this time. Take a breath from the slaughter of lies. Expand all you know, release, refine. You don't gotta go to the attic to hide. Shatter all the chatter, you got it this time. You got it this time. What the hell do you know about fear? Do you know about fear? Is it even real? What the hell do you know about heaven? Do you know about heaven? Dear 7-Eleven, so confused when I look at this place that surrounds me and begs me to pace. Too frequent shadows, too many creeps. I'm laying out in this heat, trying to get off of my knees. Don't matter if you get lost in the dark. You know the sound of soul and of heart. But sometimes you gotta play so dumb to get things done, to get things done. Row your boat on the waters of mind. Expand all you know, release, refine. You know how it goes from without to inside. Shatter all the chatter, got it this time. Take a breath from the slaughter of lies. Expand all you know, don't gotta define. You don't gotta go to the attic to hide. Shatter all the chatter, you got it this time. When the light shines through the veil, it ain't even there. And what the hell have you seen from spirit? Have you seen from spirit? Dear Sophia Lilith, what the hell do you know about fear? Do